The Other Side of Fear, a Backpacker's Memoir by Jenni Reavis. Unhidden Heroines Series, Book Number 1, Chapter 2, Brille. As I shuffled along back to the park, dazed and anxious about my newly budding reality, I received a text from the girl who the lady at the restaurant had told me I needed to meet. Jenni, this is Brille, Mariana's friend. You know the Venezuelan people who fed you at the restaurant yesterday. Do you have time to meet? I felt tremendous relief because I wouldn't be alone. There was a reason why the universe had connected us, especially in such an interesting way. She happened to be just around the corner, and we nearly collided crossing the street on our way to meet each other. We were friends immediately. We hugged and clung to each other like tomorrow would not come, and we had no idea, if it would, how things felt. I had never been so happy to hug a stranger, and when we looked at each other in the eyes, we knew we had met before in some other lifetime. I had a new sister. She looked like a real doll, tiny and petite, with long dark hair and perfect makeup. She was wearing a skirt with new knee-high boots and a black sweater showing one slender feminine shoulder. She asked if I would like to see her coffee shop. Sure. We only had one full day of freedom before 19 days of confinement. Little did we know then that the 19-day mandate would be extended for 5 months. On our way to the coffee shop, we were confronted by 3 policemen who started their routine with me. Documents and 100 questions. They are dogs, Brille whispered to me as they walked away. Do not trust them. Do not tell them you are alone. They hate you. They are not here to protect you, and don't believe what they say. Make sure you know things for yourself. Her coffee shop was tucked away down the street on the other side of the Plaza Church. There was a beautiful arched wooden door with stunning stonework carved around it. It almost looked like a scene from a movie set in medieval times. Once inside, I saw that this was a place where several small businesses were located. There was a small garden in the middle of the space with a table and chairs. It looked like it should have fairies. It was such a beautiful, magical little nook. She showed me her coffee shop and her beautifully packaged products. Do you have cigarettes? She asked. I pulled out my new pack of Marlboro Reds. She made us a coffee and sat down at that cozy table neighboring the garden. She began to tell me her story as I sat intrigued. We pulled cigarette after cigarette out of my open pack and smoked as I sat there wide-eyed listening to her story. She and her American husband had ended things horribly on a vacation in Mexico. After an escalated argument, he left her there, and she hitchhiked and backpacked her way down through Mexico and Central America until she made it to Colombia. She had shown up in this village without a peso in her pocket and volunteered at a hostel in exchange for shelter. She always dreamt of starting her own coffee shop, so she started fighting for that dream, doing one small thing at a time. Now, she not only had that coffee shop, but exported her coffee brand in large quantities to places all over the world. She told me how much she struggled and suffered, knowing she had not been a good wife and had so deeply regretted not giving her husband what he deserved. She wanted him back, and she had their love story printed on the back of her bags of coffee. Her hope was that somehow this coffee would cross his path wherever he was in the United States, and that he would read this story and come find her. She was still in love with him. In fact, they were still legally married, yet she had no way to reach him. I already knew that she had suffered before she ever told me her story. There was something about her depth that told me everything. I understood it because suffering had done the same thing inside of me. We discussed how crazy the current dilemma was, and she said she would walk me outside before parting ways so that we could begin preparing for our lockdown. We were smoking our last cigarette under the stars when she turned to me and said, I feel like I have a message for you from the universe. May I tell you? I wondered what she knew about my life. We had just met, and she did most of the talking. You have been traveling for a long time. I see many months, at least 3 years you have been on a wild adventure. The following June marked 3 years since I had arrived in Medellin on that one-way ticket, and it still seemed like only yesterday. My face didn't give her any feedback. I told her to keep going. She continued. Your travels have changed you. Every single place where you have gone held codes that have changed you. You have been silently collecting data this whole time. I see that you have begun a project. You have started to write a book. If you haven't started yet, you will. I see it as a birth. You will create a masterpiece. I see the birth of this book opening a canal for many more to come through because you are now aligned with your purpose. Your path traveling may at times have seemed random, yet each place and event has played a role in aligning you with it. Now it is time to take a great rest from traveling and write. If you don't do that, your travels from this point forward will not serve the same purpose. They won't be satisfying, and you will always feel as though you were spinning your wheels. My heart was racing. She didn't know me and definitely did not know about the tattered journal in my backpack, where I had begun to scribble pieces of my story out by hand at hidden bakeries and tucked away neighborhoods in Medellin. I listened. I swallowed down my pounding heart and gave her a nod that confirmed I had heard her. She continued. The world needs your story, Jenni. Your purpose is to travel. Don't worry about getting stuck. I also see you giving conferences and helping thousands and thousands of women later on down your path. I see lots of flags around you, which means you will cross many borders and have connections with people all over the world. Your work will be available in many languages. Jenni, it's time to be braver than ever. For me too. Okay, I will text you. We must prepare for what's coming, Jenni. The worst has yet to start. That I had definitely felt. She gave me a tight hug and then clicked off in her fancy boots. I watched her petite silhouette disappear into the night as I stood amazed at how intricately the universe had laid everything out just for that moment. I hadn't even planned to come to this village, deciding at the last minute when the bus driver convinced me that I would make this place my next destination. Out of all the restaurants where I could have eaten, I had felt an impulse to go to the one where the Venezuelan couple connected me to Brille. I raced back to where I was staying and told the lady that transport was closed. I would need to stay there a few more days. Could she give me a better price? No, she indeed would not. She also told me she wasn't okay with me using her kitchen to cook. There will be food service open for delivery, and I will still include breakfast, she informed me. Food in that touristy town was very expensive, and there was no way I could afford to call a food in every day. She said she would allow me to boil eggs if I wanted, but no cooking. I went to the store and bought a dozen eggs and a loaf of homemade bread. A $3 investment that would provide something for the next few days. Jesus. I hung down in my room with my boiled eggs, bread, plantain chips, and bottled water. I thought about the police officers I had lied to about staying with a friend and that house with the blue door. I thought I'd be gone by now. I didn't have Wi-Fi in my room, which meant no Netflix, no meditation music while I slept, no YouTube videos, and limited functions of my WhatsApp messages. The next morning, I discovered that my included breakfast had been converted to boiled eggs and a piece of bread left on the chair next to my room. For the price she was charging me, I should have had 3 meals per day included, eating at a table with her family. When I tried to use the Wi-Fi in the reception area to download Netflix episodes to watch in my room, I discovered it was too slow to even stream videos, so I decided to go to my room to sleep. Sleep at noon on a bright sunny day, I thought. My nerves were wound too tight. I had gifted my books in English along my journey traveling, and I had no internet. I took a sleeping pill and faded away. Actually, I did that the next 2 days as well, just to make time go by and to kill my anxiety. When I woke up on Friday morning, I had a message from Brille asking if she could come by to take me to the grocery store since it was our last day allowed outside. I also had an urgent intuitive message. You are sinking into a depression. Nobody else will pull you out. Leave the place where you are and go somewhere that empowers you. I got dressed, ate my boiled eggs and bread. On my way out the door, I walked past the kitchen to see the family eating a home-cooked meal at their table. I was so hungry. The owner was spoon-feeding her special needs son, a 30-year-old with cerebral palsy. He was fully dependent on his mother to feed him, change adult diapers, and bathe him. During the day, she would park his wheelchair outside, where he would grunt and moan and coo to the birds all day long, sometimes laughing and shouting. Brille was waiting for me. She had been worried about me and said that my light looked dim. We turned the corner to walk toward the store a few blocks away, where the locals bought groceries for the cheapest price, when suddenly she glanced behind and around us, grabbed my arm, and pulled us into a door that she knew was unlocked. It appeared to be a place that had formerly served as a coffee shop, with the coffee bar against the back wall and open tables for customers. She yelled something upstairs, and down came an older woman. "Hello, I'm Brille's friend Marta. May I serve you both a coffee? I don't have any desserts available, or else I would offer you something sweet." Brille informed me that this is where she was currently staying, upstairs in the spare bedroom. They had been friends for years. We sat there smoking and drinking coffee while I told her about my past couple of days. When we left, we pulled the door shut behind us and rounded the corner, and 2 cops on motorcycles pulled up next to us. "Aw, fuck," I said. I already knew they were going to stop us. Of course, they certainly did. They asked for both of our documents. They wanted to verify that we had permission to be out on that street that particular day, and of course wanted to see my passport stamp from when I entered Colombia. Any foreigner who had arrived in Colombia within the 14 days before the quarantine began was required to be completely quarantined with absolutely no access to go into public for any reason, and anyone caught violating that would be immediately put into jail. They told us we were free to go and reminded us we had 1 hour to go buy essential goods and immediately return to our homes. There and back only, understood? They did not inquire this time, however, about where home was for each of us. When I got back to my lodging, I used the Wi-Fi in the reception area to look for another place to stay in the area. Ironically, someone from one of my travel pages on Facebook had messaged me suggesting that if I needed a place to stay, they recommended Green Garden Hostel there in the village. It was only a left-hand and a right-hand turn away from where I was currently staying. I messaged the owner on WhatsApp, and he responded almost immediately. He seemed so warm and kind, and also stated that in the hostel were a few other stranded foreigners, and that they would all happily receive me as a part of their family. I told him I would sneak out late at night when the owners of my place went to bed. I had my stuff ready all day, just waiting around until Matilda and her family finally retreated to their rooms. They walked around me in silence as if I weren't even there. It was the most awkward, unwelcome experience I'd ever had in Colombia during the year plus I'd spent traveling there in Colombia. I didn't want them to have any clue about my actions. They would figure it out soon enough when they found my room vacant. Finally, at 11 p.m., everyone disappeared. I messaged the owner of the Green Garden Hostel that I would be on my way. He responded that under no circumstances should I go out by myself because of the consequences I risked by breaking quarantine as a foreigner. He insisted he come get me and help me with my bag. Again, I was marveled at how the universe had sent an angel directly to my path. The streets were dead empty and the silence was deafening. We walked in silence, hearing the crunching of our shoes on the gravel, my heart pounding. There were streetlights that cast shadows, and I wished I could be like Peter Pan and detach from it until we reached the hostel. At any moment, I felt a police officer would come around the corner or jump out from the shadows. If I were walking by myself and it happened, they could take me to jail, take my passport, and I would have no contact with the outside world for God knows how long. Oh my gosh, I was embraced by an entirely different reality once we got through the gates of that hostel. The other guests were a group of 6 people from France and 1 guy from Belgium who had just met one another traveling and had been hanging out there together for a week. They were making homemade pizza to throw in the brick oven outside and were drinking red wine, which was profusely offered to me as a welcome. As a sacrificial offering to my dedication to sobriety, I clung to my no thank you. I knew that just 1 glass would open the door for many more, and right now it was more imperative than ever to keep a clear, sober mind. The next day, I woke to interesting news. Authorities were going to lift the quarantine restriction on Monday, only to allow travelers to make it to Bogota to catch international flights. We would have permission to leave this awful village, and things could be better in a bigger city, but we only had permission to fly. I would have to leave Colombia and return to the USA. The decision broke my heart. This wasn't how I wanted to leave. I didn't feel ready. What about my laptop and things that were still in Medellin? I didn't have much time to really think hard about it. I had to make a decision and go with it. If I didn't use this opportunity on Monday to leave this place, who knows how long I would be stuck in that awful village. Then Brille called me. Honey, one of the cops that stopped us yesterday just came by here looking for you. One of the neighbors saw you with me and tattled that you came here to drink coffee, and they want to find you for breaking quarantine. The cops thought we were hiding you here, and we showed that you were not here. They left angry. I told them I didn't know where you were, but please keep a lookout. Fuck, I had to get out of this terrible place. I rounded up everyone from the hostel to see if we could join Good Vibes. Nobody else had heard that we had permission to travel to Bogota the following Monday. There would still be no public transport, so we would have to find a private driver to take us from the village to the city. If anyone wants to leave Monday, we must buy airline tickets today, Saturday, I said. That would give us all day today and tomorrow to find a driver who could get us across the border of Cundinamarca to the airport in Bogota, as well as time to get our packing done. Yes, there were 3 other people who wanted to leave, and we got on our phones immediately and found flights. With such a heavy heart, I bought an outgoing ticket for the following Monday back to the United States, leaving around 4 p.m. It was done, and it had cost just about everything I had left with a couple $100 left over. Oh my, what would life in the States be like in the midst of all this? I had made calls and texts to let worried people back home know I'd be on my way home soon. There was a French couple at a hostel around the corner who was also coordinating a humanitarian flight on private transport the following Monday. On Sunday evening, they came over to our hostel with their belongings on their backs so that we could all plan to escape this nightmare together. Well, someone from the village had secretly taken pictures of this French couple walking along with bags on their back, and they posted the pictures on social media on a social media page that was for the village only, with the message, "Look how much our governor disregards our safety. He is still letting in these disgusting people. Who agrees that we should find who is hiding these tourists like rats and take matters into our own hands?" Pictures of them walking with their packs on their backs made it look like they were recently arriving, which wasn't the truth, as they were just changing hostels. They had actually been backpacking in Colombia for months. The post went viral, shared over 300 times by local people, and there were hundreds of comments, such as these, among so many others. "They should be taken out to the desert and left there to survive. Disgusting. They are killing us by bringing disease, so they too should die. I hope they catch the disease they brought to us and die. Start setting hostels on fire to see where they escape from. Hostel owners should be held accountable for harboring criminals. Disgusting pigs, get rid of them. They're not welcome here." I found it ironic how welcome we were whenever businesses wanted us to come with our foreign money to purchase stays at hostels, food, beers, and tourism packages. Now we were criminals. Now we were stranded in a time of terror, and they had no hand to offer help. No solace, no comfort, no shelter, no kindness at all to share. They threatened us. They knew nothing about us except that our skin color gave us away for being foreigners. And for that, we were hated. This whole situation taught me in a whole different way to what extent fear destroys everything. We were all sitting on the front porch of the hostel in disbelief as we read all these hateful messages about us when 2 motorcycles pulled up and 4 men with neon green vests started banging on the gate. It was the police. The owner answered, opening only enough space to see them, but blocking them from seeing us. Someone had snitched that he was illegally hiding tourists there. They were looking for an American girl with a flower tattoo on her neck and a French couple, both with long hair, who had been rumored to arrive at the hostel earlier in the day. I was the only one in the group who spoke enough Spanish to understand what the police were saying. "They are looking for me and them," I said, pointing in the direction of the French couple. One of the French girls was outraged. Lucy stood up and yelled in English, "Oh, but we haven't done anything wrong. Tell him to come in and face us. If they take one, they take us all. We will not be treated as criminals." The other guys calmed her down. The hostel owner defended us, declaring that he followed protocol, we had done nothing wrong, and he would not allow his guests to be harassed. After much arguing, the police finally left. The owner was Colombian, and he knew his rights as a business owner. We had a wonderful last meal together, which Brille had bravely snuck through back streets to be a part of. Before she left, I gifted her one of my blank journals that said, "Do everything that scares you the most," sprawled across the front of it. We gave each other one last tearful hug goodbye, and she disappeared into the late night. The next morning, our private car arrived at 7 a.m. sharp. I lay awake all night in my bunk with a million thoughts running through my head that ranged from, what if the local people really set this place on fire and I never even make it out? To, I'm not ready to go back to the States. To, what about my laptop and clothes in Medellin? I was prepared to leave everything behind. It was only a 4-hour drive south from Villa de Leyva to the airport in Bogota. On that drive alone, we went through 4 different checkpoints where there were military officers armed with AK-47s and police officers in combat gear. They reviewed our documents and interrogated us at length, as had all the others the past 7 days. Sheesh, 7 days and 168 hours is all it took for the whole world to go up in flames. When we got to the airport, I was in for another surprise. There was a long line of desperate travelers waiting to be let in. We were surrounded by people frantically talking, mostly in French and German. I did not see any other Americans anywhere. When we finally got to the security officials who were checking ticket itineraries and passports, the 3 friends I had arrived with were admitted, but I was not. "We have no outgoing flights to the United States," stated the woman officer. "But I just bought my ticket yesterday," I insisted. "We have no outgoing flights to the United States, and we won't until after April 12th, when the 19-day quarantine lifts." I stood there blinking my eyes, trying to understand what I was being told. I was convinced that I must have been misunderstanding what she was telling me in Spanish. "But how is this possible?" I asked her. "I just booked my ticket yesterday, and the departure time is today at 4 p.m. I repeated to myself, thinking maybe she hadn't understood me. "It looks like someone sold you a fraudulent ticket. I am so sorry. We cannot help you. Contact your embassy. I know for sure we have no outgoing flights to the USA today, nor do we have any more scheduled. We will not have any more until after the 19-day lockdown." My group had stopped and turned to wait for me. My stomach had already sunk hard to the ground. I waved them goodbye. I remember like it was yesterday. Their faces told me they wanted to understand why I couldn't come through, but they didn't have time to find out what was wrong. Their flights were leaving and their families were waiting. I couldn't feel my legs. My whole body felt numb. Where would I go? What would I do? I waded through the thick crowd of angry Europeans making demands of airport officials. I made it to a point a few feet away from the crowd and dropped my back to the ground, where I also sat down. What a shit show, I thought. Some of them had tickets and some didn't. Some had been sold tickets the airlines had double booked and were arguing over whose ticket was valid. Everyone considered themselves equally entitled to their flights and were pushing, shoving, and arguing. It reminded me of the scene on Titanic, where everyone knew the boat was going to sink and were fighting over who got lifeboats, knowing there was only a room for a few. I sat down on the dirty pavement next to a trash can. I lit up a Marlboro and watched the heavy rain pour down. Finally, a sky that matched the day.